I refused a job promotion to stay close and care for my parents, but on my son's birthday, they simply didn't show up because they were at my sister's grandson's 5th birthday party, who lives 3 blocks away. My 8-year-old son waited for his grandparents for 3 hours with his Batman cake melting on the table, while I called desperately, until I saw on my mother's Instagram a photo hugging the other grandson with the caption, "Our favorite prince." The silence in our living room was deafening as Oliver finally asked in a small voice if Grandma and Grandpa didn't love him anymore. I watched him carefully blow out the candles alone, making a wish with tears streaming down his face, while party decorations mocked us from every corner. What my parents didn't know was that their Instagram post had just made the easiest decision of my life. I'm Brandon Mitchell, 35 years old, and until 3 weeks ago, I believed family loyalty meant sacrifice. I had turned down a senior engineering position in Vancouver 6 months earlier, a role that would have tripled my salary and launched my career into the stratosphere. The head of the firm had personally called me, practically begging me to reconsider. "You're leaving money and opportunity on the table, Brandon," he'd said. But I'd looked at my aging parents, my father's recent heart surgery, my mother's anxiety about being alone, and I'd said no. I stayed in Portland. I stayed close. I stayed available for every medical appointment, every grocery run, every time they needed help with their phone or computer. My sister Nicole lived 3 blocks from our parents with her husband and their daughter Emma, who had recently given birth to little Joshua. From the moment that baby arrived, something shifted in the family dynamics. My mother started posting daily photos of Joshua on social media, gushing captions about her precious first great-grandchild. Never mind that Oliver was her grandson, her flesh and blood, who she'd supposedly adored since birth. The favoritism became so blatant that even my wife Sarah noticed it during Sunday dinners. "Your mom barely asked about Oliver's science fair project," she'd whispered to me after one particularly painful meal where my mother spent 40 minutes showing everyone photos of Joshua's latest outfit changes. The birthday party incident wasn't just painful, it was clarifying. As I sat there watching Oliver try to be brave, watching the Batman cake's frosting slowly melt under the heat of 8 extinguished candles, something cold and decisive crystallized in my chest. My phone buzzed with my mother's Instagram notifications, each one a knife twist. Photos of Nicole's family. Photos of Joshua surrounded by extended family members I hadn't seen in months. Photos of my parents beaming, looking happier than they'd looked at any event involving Oliver in the past year. The caption under the family group photo read, "Nothing beats family time with our favorite little prince Joshua, celebrating his big day with the people who matter most. The people who matter most." The phrase echoed in my mind as Oliver finally gave up waiting and went to his room. Sarah followed him, shooting me a look that said everything words couldn't. I sat alone in our dining room, surrounded by superhero decorations and untouched party snacks, and I made a phone call. "Mr. Chen, this is Brandon Mitchell. About that position in Vancouver, is it still available?" His response was immediate and enthusiastic. "Brandon, perfect timing. We haven't filled it yet. When can you start?" I glanced at the melted cake, at the gifts my parents hadn't seen Oliver open, at the empty chairs where they should have been sitting. "Give me 3 weeks," I said. What my parents were about to learn was that loyalty is a two-way street, and they'd just driven theirs off a cliff. The next morning, I started making calls with surgical precision. First, a real estate agent who specialized in quick sales. "I need this house on the market by Wednesday and sold within 2 weeks, I told her. She whistled low. "That's aggressive, Mr. Mitchell. You'll have to price it competitively." I looked around at the home we'd carefully renovated, the yard where Oliver played, the neighborhood where we'd built a life. "Price it to move fast. I don't care about maximizing profit. I care about speed." Sarah found me in my home office that afternoon, staring at relocation packages from the Vancouver firm. "You're serious about this," she said. It wasn't a question. I pulled up my mother's Instagram on my laptop, scrolling through months of posts. Joshua featured in 47 photos in the past 3 months. Oliver appeared in exactly 3, and 2 of those were group shots where you could barely see his face. "Look at this," I said, my voice flat. "Count how many times she's mentioned Oliver versus Joshua. Count how many times she's shared his accomplishments versus gushing about a baby who literally just lies there and drools." Sarah sat down heavily. "I've noticed. I didn't want to say anything because they're your parents, but Brandon, yesterday broke my heart, watching Oliver check the window every 10 minutes, convinced they were just running late. Her voice cracked. He made me promise not to cut the cake until they arrived because Grandma always said she loved seeing him blow out candles. That night, Oliver came to our bedroom around midnight. "Dad, are you awake?" I pulled him onto the bed between Sarah and me. "What's up, buddy?" He was quiet for a long moment. "Did I do something wrong? Is that why Grandma and Grandpa didn't come?" The question gutted me. "No, Oliver. You did nothing wrong. Nothing at all." He nodded, but didn't look convinced. "Emma's baby is cuter than me, isn't he? That's why they like him more." Sarah started crying silently, turning her face into the pillow. I held my son tighter. "Listen to me. You are perfect exactly as you are, and anyone who can't see that doesn't deserve your time or your love." My phone buzzed incessantly over the next 2 days. My mother called 6 times before I finally answered. "Brandon, honey, I'm so sorry about the party. We just lost track of time at Joshua's celebration, and it ran so much longer than we expected." Her voice was cheerful, dismissive, like she was explaining away a minor scheduling conflict rather than devastating her grandson. "It was fine, Mom," I said neutrally. Oliver understood. That was a lie. Oliver had cried himself to sleep. "Oh, good. I knew he'd be mature about it. 8 is old enough to not throw tantrums over parties, right? Kids these days are so spoiled, expecting everyone to revolve around them." Her words landed like physical blows. "Actually, Mom, 8-year-olds generally expect their grandparents to show up when they promise to." Silence on the other end. "Well, obviously we would have been there if we could, but Nicole really needed us there for Joshua. It's his first birthday, Brandon. That's a milestone." I thought about Oliver's first birthday, when my parents had left early because my dad wanted to watch a football game. I thought about his 5th birthday, when they'd shown up an hour late because they'd been shopping. I thought about every school play, every soccer game, every proud moment where Oliver had searched the crowd for their faces and found disappointment instead. "Right. Well, I'm glad you had a good time." She relaxed, hearing what she wanted to hear. Acceptance, forgiveness. "We'll make it up to Oliver soon. Maybe take him for ice cream next week." "Actually, we're going to be pretty busy. I'm putting the house on the market." Dead silence. "What? Why?" I could hear the panic creeping into her voice. "I got a better job offer. We're relocating." More silence, then a forced laugh. "Don't be ridiculous, Brandon. You turned down that Vancouver thing months ago. Stop joking around." "I'm not joking. The offer's back on the table and I accepted it. We move in 3 weeks. The line crackled with her sharp intake of breath. 3 weeks? But what about us? Who's going to help with your father's appointments? Who's going to pick up our prescriptions? Brandon, we need you here." There it was, the real concern. Not Oliver's feelings, not the relationship they damaged, but their convenience. "I'm sure Nicole can help. She only lives 3 blocks away, remember?" My mother's tone shifted, hardening. "Nicole has her hands full with Emma and the baby. She can't be expected to take care of us, too." The irony was so thick I almost laughed. "But I can be expected to sacrifice my career and my son's happiness?" I asked quietly. "That's different. You're our son. You have a responsibility." I looked at the real estate photos being uploaded to the MLS database on my computer screen. "And you had a responsibility to your grandson. Funny how responsibilities only flow one direction in this family." Before she could respond, I ended the call. Sarah appeared in the doorway. That sounded intense. I showed her the listing, already live, already generating interest. "The agent thinks we'll have offers by Friday." She studied my face carefully. "No regrets?" I pulled up the photo of Oliver from his birthday, the one Sarah had taken right after my parents' Instagram post loaded, showing him staring at his phone with devastation written across his 8-year-old features. Not even one. The house showing started within 48 hours. My parents called 17 times that first week. I answered exactly none of them. Let them experience what it feels like to be ignored, to reach out and find silence. Sarah handled the packing with military efficiency, sorting years of accumulated life into boxes marked Vancouver, storage, or donate. Oliver caught on quickly that something big was happening. "Are we really moving, Dad?" I knelt down to his level. "Yes, buddy, to Canada. I got an amazing job opportunity, and we're going to have an adventure. His eyes lit up with the first real joy I'd seen since his birthday. Will Grandma and Grandpa visit us there? The question hung in the air. Sarah and I exchanged glances. Maybe sometimes, I said, keeping my voice neutral. But it's pretty far away. Oliver nodded thoughtfully. That's okay. They're probably too busy with Joshua anyway. The casual acceptance in his voice, the way he'd already processed and internalized their rejection, made me even more certain we were making the right choice. My parents had taught my son that he was less important, less valued, less loved. I was about to teach them something far more painful about consequences. The first offer came in on Thursday, exactly as the agent predicted. $20,000 over asking price, cash buyer, willing to close in 2 weeks. I accepted it immediately. My father finally showed up at our door on Friday evening, looking older and smaller than I remembered. Brandon, we need to talk. Your mother is beside herself. I let him in, but didn't offer him a seat. What's there to talk about, Dad? He ran his hand through his thinning hair. This is crazy. You're throwing away everything over one missed birthday party? Kids are resilient. Oliver will get over it. I felt something snap inside me. Get over it? Dad, do you have any idea how long he waited? How many times he ran to the window thinking he heard your car? My father shifted uncomfortably. We already apologized. What more do you want? I pulled out my phone, showing him the Instagram post, read the caption. Read all of them from the past 6 months. He squinted at the screen, scrolling reluctantly. I watched his face carefully, looking for any sign of recognition, of understanding. Nothing. Your mother is just excited about her first great-grandchild. That's natural. His defensive tone told me everything. Oliver is her grandchild. Your grandson. Doesn't that count for anything? Of course it does. But it's different with babies. They're new and exciting. He handed back my phone. You're being overly sensitive. This is how families work. Sometimes people get more attention at different times. I stared at him, seeing clearly for the first time how deeply the favoritism ran. No, Dad. This is how dysfunctional families work. Healthy families don't rank their grandchildren by cuteness or novelty. He bristled. Don't lecture me about family. I raised you, didn't I? Put a roof over your head, food on the table. The classic deflection. Yes, you did the bare minimum required by law. Congratulations. My sarcasm landed hard. His face flushed. The bare minimum? I worked my entire life to provide for this family. I moved toward the door, opening it. And now I'm working to provide for mine, which means removing toxic influences, even when they're related by blood. Toxic? Your own parents? He looked genuinely shocked, like the thought had never occurred to him. Yes, toxic. You taught Oliver that he's not as important as his cousin, that promises to him don't matter, that his feelings are invalid. What part of that sounds healthy to you? My father's mouth opened and closed. We never meant. We didn't think, Brandon. You're blowing this way out of proportion. Am I? Because from where I'm standing, I turned down a career-defining opportunity to stay close and help you both. And you couldn't even manage to show up for your grandson's birthday because you were 3 blocks away at a better party. I let that sink in. 3 blocks, Dad. You drove past our house to get to Nicole's. You drove past your grandson waiting for you because another child was more important. His face went pale. When you put it like that, it sounds worse than it was. I shook my head. No, it sounds exactly like what it was. And here's what happens next. I'm taking my family to Vancouver. I'm giving Oliver a fresh start where he doesn't have to wonder why he's not good enough for his own grandparents. And you and Mom are going to have to figure out your medical appointments and prescription pickups without me. But we need you here. The panic was back in his voice. Nicole has her hands full. We can't burden her. I smiled without humor. Interesting. You can burden me indefinitely, make me sacrifice my career and my family's well-being, but you can't ask your golden child Nicole for help? The one who lives 3 blocks away? Understanding dawned slowly across his face. This is revenge. You're punishing us. No, Dad, I'm protecting my son. There's a difference. I gestured to the moving boxes stacked in our living room. These are the consequences of your choices. You prioritized one grandchild over another, so obviously that an 8-year-old noticed and internalized it. You made him feel worthless. So now you get to experience what it's like when someone decides you're not worth their time or presence. My father tried one more time. Brandon, please, we'll do better. We'll make more effort with Oliver. Just don't move across the country. I thought about that for a moment, genuinely considered whether they could change. Then I remembered Oliver's face at that melted cake. The time for doing better was before my son learned that his grandparents' love is conditional. You had 8 years to show up for him consistently. Instead, you showed up when it was convenient, left early when something better came along, and finally didn't show up at all. That's not a pattern I'm going to let continue. After my father left, Sarah found me staring out the window. That looked rough. I turned to her. He wanted me to feel guilty, to cave because they're old and need help. She took my hand. And do you? Feel guilty? I thought about it honestly. No, I feel sad that it came to this. But guilty? Not even a little. They made their choices. They get to live with them. The next week brought a barrage of manipulation attempts. My mother called crying, claiming my father's health was declining from stress. Nicole sent lengthy texts about family responsibility and how I was being cruel. Distant relatives I hadn't heard from in years suddenly had opinions about my decision. Extended family members started leaving comments on social media about the importance of forgiveness and keeping families together. Each message, each call, each guilt trip only reinforced that I was making the right choice. Oliver's last day at his school brought unexpected clarity. His teacher pulled me aside. I wanted you to know that Oliver's been struggling this year. He's mentioned several times feeling less important than his baby cousin. I think the move might be really good for him. A chance to start fresh without those comparisons. Even strangers could see what my parents refused to acknowledge. The house closed escrow on schedule. We loaded the moving truck on a sunny Tuesday morning. Neighbors came out to say goodbye, surprised by our sudden departure. My parents showed up as we were loading the last boxes, both of them looking haggard. Please don't do this, my mother begged. We're sorry. We'll change. Just give us another chance. I looked at Oliver, sitting in the car with his headphones on, deliberately ignoring his grandparents. You had every chance. You chose to waste them. My father tried to approach the car. Oliver, come give Grandpa a hug. Oliver looked at me, his expression uncertain. I nodded permission. He climbed out slowly, accepted a stiff hug, then retreated back to the car without a word. My mother started crying harder. See? He's already pulling away from us. Brandon, you're poisoning him against his own family. No, Mom. You did that yourselves when you taught him he wasn't worth showing up for. I climbed into the driver's seat. You'll have this address if you want to visit, but you'll need to book hotels and flights. We won't be making it easy or convenient. You'll have to actually try, something you've proven you're not willing to do. As we pulled away, I watched them in the rearview mirror, standing in front of the sold house, looking lost and confused. Sarah reached over and squeezed my hand. No regrets? She asked again. I looked at Oliver in the back seat, already pulling out his Nintendo Switch, his young face relaxed in a way I hadn't seen in months. Not even one, I confirmed. The real justice was about to begin, and my parents had no idea how thoroughly their choices were about to reshape their lives. The first 3 months in Vancouver were transformative. Oliver flourished in his new school, making friends quickly and joining the robotics club. Sarah found a job she loved at a local tech startup. I threw myself into my new role, quickly proving why the firm had pursued me so aggressively. My salary increase meant we could afford a beautiful home in a family-friendly neighborhood with a yard twice the size of what we'd had in Portland. Meanwhile, my phone buzzed constantly with increasingly desperate messages from my parents. At first, they were angry, accusatory texts about abandonment and betrayal. Then came the guilt trips, messages about how my father's health was suffering, how my mother couldn't sleep from worry. I responded to none of them. Silence, I was learning, was the most powerful response of all. Nicole finally called me directly, her voice tight with frustration. Brandon, you need to come back or at least help from there. Mom and Dad are falling apart. Dad missed 2 doctor's appointments because he couldn't figure out the new patient portal, and Mom had a panic attack at the pharmacy when her prescription wasn't ready. I listened quietly, then asked, Where were you during all this? You live 3 blocks away, remember? I have a newborn and a toddler, Brandon. I can't be running around taking care of them too. Her voice rose defensively. Interesting. But somehow I was supposed to sacrifice my career and uproot my life regularly while managing a full-time job and raising a child? Help me understand the math there, Nicole. She sputtered. That's different. You're their son. You don't have the same responsibilities I do. I laughed, a sharp, bitter sound. Right. Because being their daughter means you get a pass. Being their son means unlimited obligations. Got it. I paused. Here's the thing, Nicole. I spent 6 months being their on-call support system. I turned down a life-changing opportunity to be available for every little thing. And when my son needed them to show up for 3 hours, they couldn't manage it because your son's party was more important. So no, I won't be helping. You handle it. You're closer. The call ended badly, with Nicole accusing me of being petty and vindictive. What she didn't understand was that this wasn't revenge. It was consequences. For the first time in their lives, my parents were experiencing what it felt like when someone decided they weren't a priority. 4 months in, my mother managed to figure out how to send a voice message. Her voice was thick with tears. Brandon, please. Your father fell last week. He's okay, but it scared us both. We need family nearby. We need you. I don't understand how you can be so cruel. We made one mistake, and you're punishing us forever. When will you forgive us? I listened to the message 3 times, analyzing her words. Not once did she mention Oliver. Not once did she acknowledge the deeper pattern of favoritism. It was all about their needs, their fears, their discomfort. I saved the message but didn't respond. Then came the message that changed everything. 6 months after our move, my mother sent a text that read, "Why are you being so ridiculous about one missed birthday party? Oliver is 8, not a baby. He's old enough to understand that sometimes adults have scheduling conflicts. Stop being so sensitive and get over it. Some children matter more at different times. That's just reality." I stared at that message for a full minute, my heart rate accelerating. She'd actually written it down, the truth she'd been dancing around for months. Some children matter more at different times. I screenshot the message immediately, along with several others where they'd dismissed Oliver's feelings or minimized the impact of their no-show. That evening, I showed Sarah the messages. She actually said it, out loud, that some children matter more. Sarah's eyes widened. Oh, Brandon, this is worse than I thought. She doesn't even see what she's saying. I nodded slowly, an idea forming. I'm going to send this to Nicole. Let her see exactly what Mom thinks about family hierarchy. I forwarded the screenshot to Nicole without comment. Her response came within minutes. What the hell is this? I replied simply. Mom's honest opinion about why some grandchildren get priority over others. Thought you should see it since you keep insisting I'm overreacting. Nicole tried to call. I declined. She texted, "We need to talk about this." I responded, "No, you need to think about this. About what it means that Mom openly admits she values one grandchild more than another. About whether you want your children raised with that kind of toxic favoritism. I made my choice. You make yours." The fallout was spectacular. Nicole apparently confronted my parents about the message. My mother, backed into a corner, doubled down, insisting she'd been taken out of context, that I was twisting her words. But the text was clear, unambiguous. There was no other way to interpret some children matter more at different times. Nicole stopped defending them quite so vigorously after that. Her messages to me became shorter, less accusatory. She was starting to see what I'd seen all along, that the favoritism wasn't just in my head, wasn't just me being oversensitive. It was real, deliberate. And Mom didn't even think it was wrong. 8 months in, I received an email from my father. It was formal, almost businesslike. He'd learned I'd been promoted again, this time to a director-level position. The email congratulated me, then asked if this meant I'd be able to help them financially since I was clearly doing well now. The audacity stunned me. They'd barely acknowledged their grandson's existence, had dismissed his hurt feelings as childish tantrums, but now they wanted financial support. I replied with equal formality. Thank you for the congratulations. As for financial assistance, I'm prioritizing my immediate family's needs and future security. I'm sure you understand. After all, as you've often said, some family members matter more at different times. I CC'd Nicole on the email. My father's response was instant and furious. "How dare you throw my words back at me? We're your parents. We raised you." I didn't reply. The hypocrisy was its own response. Oliver's 9th birthday approached, and this time we planned something completely different. We invited his new friends from school, his robotics club teammates, and his new favorite teacher who'd taken a special interest in his projects. We had it at a trampoline park, with pizza and cake and pure, uncomplicated joy. No one mentioned my parents. No one asked why his grandparents weren't there. It was perfect. I posted photos on social media for the first time in months, carefully tagged and public. Oliver mid-jump laughing, Oliver with his friends surrounded by happiness, Oliver blowing out candles on his cake, his face radiant with genuine pleasure. The caption read, "9 years of this amazing kid, so grateful for family who actually show up." The comments poured in from friends and colleagues in Vancouver, celebrating with us. And then, buried in the thread, a comment from my mother. "Wish we could have been there. Miss you so much, Oliver." I almost deleted it. Instead, I replied publicly, "You were invited. You chose not to come." It was a lie, they hadn't been invited. But I wanted everyone to see their response. My mother deleted her comment within an hour, but screenshots lived forever. Several people had already captured it, commenting on the audacity of playing the victim publicly while privately dismissing her grandson's importance. The real consequences were just beginning, and my parents were finally starting to realize that their actions had cost them more than they'd ever imagined possible. 1 year after we moved to Vancouver, my mother made her final desperate attempt. She sent a long email detailing every sacrifice she and my father had made for me growing up, every dollar spent, every activity driven to, every meal prepared. The message was clear. I owed them. The email concluded with, "Family means being there no matter what. It means forgiving and moving forward. When will you stop punishing us for one mistake?" I crafted my response carefully, taking my time to ensure every word landed with precision. "Mom, you're right that family means being there no matter what. That's exactly why I turned down my dream job 6 months before Oliver's birthday, to be available for you and Dad. That's why I drove you to every appointment, picked up every prescription, handled every technical problem with your phones and computers. I was there no matter what, sacrificing my career advancement and time with my own family." I continued, "But you weren't there for Oliver. Not just once, but repeatedly. You left his first birthday early for a football game. You arrived an hour late to his 5th birthday. You forgot about his science fair. You missed his soccer championship because you were shopping. And finally, you couldn't even manage to drive 3 blocks to his 8th birthday because Joshua's party was more fun." Then came the critical part. "You ask when I'll stop punishing you for one mistake. But it wasn't one mistake, Mom. It was a pattern spanning years. And even now, a full year later, you're still asking when I'll forgive you, not whether you can make amends to Oliver. You're still centering yourself. You still haven't acknowledged the real damage, that you taught my son he's less valuable than his cousin. That's not a mistake. That's a choice. And choices have consequences." I attached screenshots of every dismissive text, every message where they'd minimized Oliver's feelings, and especially the one where Mom had written that some children matter more at different times. "These are your words, Mom, your actual beliefs. I'm not punishing you. I'm protecting my son from people who demonstrated clearly that his emotional well-being is less important than their convenience." The final paragraph was surgical. "You taught me an important lesson about family, that it's not defined by blood, but by who shows up consistently with love and respect. By that definition, you and Dad stopped being Oliver's family the moment you decided he wasn't worth a 3-block drive. We've built a new family here in Vancouver, people who value us, who keep their promises, who don't rank children by favoritism. Oliver is thriving specifically because he's no longer exposed to your toxic hierarchy. That's not punishment, that's protection." I hit send and felt nothing but calm certainty. Nicole called within the hour. "Brandon, Mom is devastated. That email destroyed her." I asked simply, "Which part was untrue?" Silence. "None of it," she admitted quietly. "That's what makes it so brutal. Every word was accurate." Then, surprisingly, "I owe you an apology. I didn't see it clearly until you left. But watching how they've reacted this year, how they still don't get what they did wrong, I understand now. You weren't overreacting. If anything, you showed remarkable restraint." She paused. They asked me to be their primary support now, to handle all the stuff you used to do. And Brandon, it's exhausting. Dad had a minor medical emergency last month, and they called me at 2 in the morning, hysterical. I have 2 small children. I can't be their 24/7 crisis manager. But when I tried to set boundaries, Mom accused me of abandoning them just like you did. Welcome to the club, I said without sympathy. The club of children expected to sacrifice everything while getting nothing in return. Nicole laughed bitterly. I get it now. I really do. And I'm sorry I didn't support you earlier. I was so caught up in my own life that I didn't see how unfairly you were being treated, or how unfairly they were treating Oliver. 2 months later, my father had a moderate stroke. Nicole called to inform me, her voice exhausted. He's going to recover, but he'll need more intensive care going forward. Mom is asking if you'll come back to help. I didn't hesitate. No, Nicole didn't argue. I figured, for what it's worth, I think you're right to stay away. They still haven't apologized to Oliver properly. Mom actually said yesterday that all this stress from you abandoning them probably contributed to Dad's stroke. Incredible, I said. Still making themselves the victims. Nicole sighed. I'm thinking about moving, actually. Emma's husband got a job offer in Seattle. We're considering it seriously. Being 3 blocks away has become a prison. Every day brings new demands, new crises, new guilt trips. Do it, I encouraged. Your kids deserve parents who aren't constantly exhausted and resentful from caregiving duties you didn't sign up for. And Nicole, they'll try to guilt you into staying. Don't let them. She was quiet for a moment. When did you get so strong, Brandon? I thought about Oliver, now thriving in his new school, confident and happy, no longer carrying the weight of feeling less than. When I became a father. When I realized my son's well-being mattered more than anyone's expectations of me. 3 months later, Nicole moved to Seattle. My parents were now truly alone, with no children within easy driving distance. The irony was perfect. They'd prioritized one grandchild so thoroughly that they'd lost access to all of them. Joshua would grow up barely knowing his great-grandparents, just like Oliver. The difference was that Oliver's distance was protection. Joshua's distance was collateral damage from his parents' decision to flee. On Oliver's 10th birthday, 2 years after the incident that changed everything, we threw a huge party. His Vancouver friends filled our backyard, his robotics team presented him with a custom-built robot, and his favorite teacher gave a speech about his remarkable growth and achievements. Sarah and I stood watching him, surrounded by genuine love and celebration, and I felt nothing but peace. My phone buzzed with a message from my mother. Happy birthday to Oliver. We love him so much and miss him every day. Please tell him we're thinking of him. I showed the message to Sarah. Should I tell her? Sarah considered. It's up to you, but maybe let Oliver decide if he wants contact. I found Oliver later, sitting with his friends, his face flushed with happiness. Hey buddy, your grandmother sent a birthday message. Want to see it? He looked up, thought for a moment, then shook his head. Not really. I'm having too much fun right now. And just like that, he turned back to his friends. Not angry, not hurt, just indifferent. That indifference was the real victory. My parents hadn't just lost their grandson's presence. They'd lost his emotional investment entirely. He'd moved on, built a life where they were irrelevant. They'd taught him he didn't matter to them. He'd learned the lesson perfectly, and now they didn't matter to him. I deleted the message without responding. My mother would wait for a reply that would never come, just like Oliver had waited for grandparents who never arrived. The symmetry was poetic. They'd get exactly what they'd given. Absence, silence, and the hollow feeling of not being anyone's priority. They'd chosen this path when they drove past our house to get to a better party. Now they'd walk that path alone, watching their grandson's life unfold through absent social media posts they weren't tagged in, seeing photos of celebrations they weren't invited to, experiencing firsthand what it felt like to be considered less important than literally everyone else. Justice wasn't revenge. Justice was simply letting people experience the natural consequences of their choices, and my parents were drowning in consequences. 3 years after moving to Vancouver, life had settled into something better than I'd ever imagined. Oliver, now 11, had become a confident, accomplished kid who excelled in robotics competitions and had a solid friend group. Sarah had been promoted twice at her company. I'd become one of the youngest VPs in my firm's history. We'd bought a larger house, traveled extensively, and built a life of genuine contentment. My parents' attempts at contact had dwindled to occasional holiday messages that I rarely answered. According to Nicole, who maintained minimal contact with them from Seattle, they'd aged dramatically. My father's stroke had left him with reduced mobility. My mother's anxiety had worsened into depression. They'd had to hire professional caregivers, expensive services that were draining their retirement savings at an alarming rate. Nicole told me during one of our now regular video calls, they ask about Oliver sometimes. Mom wanted me to send recent photos, but I told her that wasn't my place. She paused. They're bitter now, Brandon. They blame you for their isolation, for their health problems, for everything. They can't see that they did this to themselves. Good, I said without hesitation. Let them be bitter. Let them sit in their empty house and think about the grandson they had, who they treated like an afterthought. Let them remember driving past his party to attend a better one. Maybe, in their bitterness, they'll finally understand what they destroyed. The final communication came on what would have been my father's birthday in December. My mother sent a long voice message, her speech slightly slurred from medication. Brandon, your father is dying. The doctors say he has maybe 6 months. He wants to see Oliver before he goes. Please, I'm begging you. Don't let him die without seeing his grandson one more time. Whatever we did wrong, surely you can forgive us for Oliver's sake. Children need their grandparents. I saved the message and played it for Sarah and Oliver that evening. Oliver, now mature enough to understand complex family dynamics, listened carefully. When it finished, he looked at me. Do you want me to go see him, Dad? I shook my head. This is your choice, buddy. I'll support whatever you decide. But I want you to think about something first. What do you remember about Grandpa and Grandma? Oliver thought for a moment. Honestly? Not much. I remember waiting for them at my birthday party. I remember feeling like I wasn't good enough. But that's about it. I don't really feel anything for them now. He looked at me seriously. Is that bad? No, Sarah answered before I could. It's honest. They had 11 years to build a relationship with you. They chose not to invest in that relationship. You don't owe them emotional labor just because they're related to you by blood. Oliver nodded slowly. Then I don't want to go. I don't want to pretend I'm sad about someone I barely know. That would be fake. I felt a surge of pride. My son had learned the most important lesson, that he didn't have to set himself on fire to keep other people warm, even if those people were family. I sent one final message to my mother. Oliver doesn't want to come. You had 11 years to be important to him. You chose to prioritize other things, other people, other grandchildren. Those were your choices. He's simply respecting what you taught him, that his feelings and presence don't matter to you. Why should yours matter to him? I attached a screenshot of her old message. Some children matter more at different times. That's just reality. Then I continued. You wrote these words, Mom. You believed them. Now you get to live in the reality you created. Oliver matters to me more than your comfort. His emotional health matters more than Dad's dying wishes. You taught me that some family members matter more at different times. Right now, my son matters more than your regrets. I blocked both their numbers after sending it. Nicole called me the next day. Mom had a complete breakdown after your message. She's been hospitalized for a psychiatric evaluation. I felt nothing. That's unfortunate, but it doesn't change anything. She had years to make different choices. I know, Nicole said quietly. I told her the same thing. I said you were right, that she'd destroyed those relationships herself and had no one to blame but herself and her own favoritism. She didn't want to hear it, but Brandon, it needed to be said. My father died 4 months later without ever seeing Oliver again. I didn't attend the funeral. Sarah asked if I was sure, and I was. Absolutely certain. That man had spent my son's 8th birthday at a party 3 blocks away from ours, teaching Oliver that he wasn't valuable enough to merit a short drive. Why should I spend time and money to travel for his funeral? My mother sent one final message after the service, not to me, but posted publicly on Facebook. My son didn't even attend his father's funeral. I raised him better than this. I don't know where I went wrong. The comments were initially sympathetic until several people who knew the full story chimed in. Someone shared screenshots of her old messages. Another person posted about how she'd missed her grandson's birthday for a better party. The narrative shifted quickly. "You taught him exactly this," one comment read. "You showed him that family commitments don't matter. He learned the lesson perfectly." Another said, "You can't expect someone to show up for you when you repeatedly failed to show up for their child." My mother deleted the post within hours, but the damage was done. Even in death, my father's legacy was tarnished by their choices. 6 months after my father's passing, my mother tried one last time to reach me through email. "Brandon, I'm alone. I'm old. I'm sick. I understand now that I was wrong. Please, I need my family. I need to see Oliver. I'll apologize. I'll do whatever it takes. Please don't leave me to die alone like your father did." I read the email twice, looking for any genuine acknowledgement of what she'd actually done wrong. The words were there. I was wrong. But there was no specificity, no real understanding. She was sorry she was alone, sorry she was suffering consequences. But nowhere did she acknowledge the specific pain she'd caused Oliver, the pattern of favoritism, the casual cruelty of her actions and words. I replied once, finally, after 3 years of silence. "Mom, you're not alone because I'm cruel. You're alone because you taught your grandson he didn't matter, and he believed you. You're alone because you drove past his party to attend a better one. You're alone because when confronted with your favoritism, you doubled down and said some children matter more at different times. You're alone because even now, your apology is about your loneliness, not about the damage you caused to a child." I continued, "You want to see Oliver? He's thriving. He's happy. He's confident. He's surrounded by people who value him consistently, not conditionally. He doesn't think about you anymore. You're not a presence he misses. You're an absence he's grateful for. That's what you created. You took a boy who loved you and waited hours for you, and you turned him into a young man who feels nothing when your name is mentioned. Then the final blow. You ask me not to leave you to die alone like Dad did. But Dad didn't die alone because of me. He died alone because of the choices you both made. You had a grandson 3 blocks away and a son willing to sacrifice his career to care for you. You squandered both relationships for a baby who won't even remember you. Those were your choices. This loneliness is what you built. Live in it. Die in it. I have nothing else to say to you." I blocked her email after sending that message. Nicole called me that evening. "She read your email and had another breakdown. She's back in the hospital." Nicole paused. "Brandon, that email was brutal. It was also completely accurate. She needed to hear it even if it destroyed her. I'm not responsible for her mental health," I said calmly. "I'm responsible for my son's well-being. And keeping her toxic influence out of his life is the best decision I ever made." Nicole agreed softly. "You're right. I've been thinking about Mom's favoritism with my own kids lately. She barely acknowledges Emma anymore, now that she's 7. All her attention goes to Joshua. I'm seeing the same pattern repeat, and I refuse to let it damage my daughter the way it damaged Oliver." "Then don't," I said. "You have the power to stop the cycle." I did. That Christmas, we spent the holidays with Sarah's family, who'd embraced Oliver completely. His maternal grandparents had flown in from Toronto, bringing thoughtful gifts and spending quality time with him. They'd attended his robotics competition, learned about his interests, and treated him like he mattered. Real grandparents, I thought, watching Oliver laugh with them. This is what he deserved all along. My mother died 8 months later, alone in a nursing home. The facility called Nicole, who called me. "The funeral is next week. Will you come?" I thought about it for approximately 3 seconds. "No, I have nothing to mourn. The grandmother who might have loved Oliver died years ago, the day she decided he wasn't worth a 3-block drive. This is just paperwork." Nicole didn't argue. "I understand. I'm only going because I feel obligated, but honestly, I feel relief more than grief. Is that terrible?" I considered her question carefully. "No, it's honest. They were exhausting people who took more than they gave and blamed everyone else for their emptiness. You're allowed to feel relieved that the obligation is finally over." After my mother's death, Nicole found something while cleaning out the house. A box of photos from Oliver's early years, birthday parties, holidays, everyday moments. My mother had kept them, had looked at them, had known exactly what she was throwing away. She'd made her choices with full awareness, not from ignorance. That somehow made it worse. Nicole sent me the box. I showed Oliver, now 12 and remarkably perceptive. He flipped through the photos with clinical interest. I looked happy with them when I was little. He studied one photo of himself at age 4, sitting on my mother's lap, both of them smiling. I don't remember feeling that way, though. I only remember the disappointment later. That's because real relationships aren't built on old photos, I explained. They're built on showing up consistently, especially when it's inconvenient. They stopped showing up, so the relationship ended. The photos are just evidence of what might have been if they'd made different choices. Oliver closed the box. Can we donate these? I don't need them. I felt a profound sense of peace at his words. He wasn't angry or hurt. He'd simply moved on so completely that his grandparents had become irrelevant to his identity. They'd wanted to be in his life only on their terms, when it was convenient, when he was cute enough or young enough or important enough. He'd learned from their rejection and built a life where he was always important, always valued, always chosen first. That was the ultimate justice. Not that my parents suffered in their final years, though they did. Not that they died without seeing their grandson, though that happened. The real justice was that Oliver thrived without them. He grew into a remarkable young man who understood his worth, who wouldn't accept conditional love, who knew that real family meant consistent presence and care. My parents had taught him he didn't matter. In doing so, they'd taught him the most valuable lesson of all, that he got to choose who mattered to him. And he'd chosen not them. They'd driven past his party to attend a better one, and in response, he'd driven past their entire existence to attend a better life. The symmetry was perfect. Years later, when Oliver was 15 and applying to colleges, he wrote his admission essay about resilience and building chosen family. He never mentioned my parents by name, but the story was clear. People who dismissed him, a move that became liberation, finding his worth in communities that celebrated him rather than tolerated him. The essay ended. I learned that family isn't who shares your blood. It's who shows up when you need them, who keeps their promises, who makes you feel valuable just by being yourself. Some people will fail you. That's not your fault. But building a life with people who won't fail you? That's your choice, your power, your victory. He got into his first choice university with a full scholarship. At the celebration dinner, surrounded by friends and chosen family, Sarah raised her glass. To Oliver, who took pain and turned it into wisdom, who took rejection and turned it into strength, everyone cheered. Later that night, I found a social media message from a distant cousin I barely knew. I heard your parents died estranged from you and Oliver. Don't you feel guilty? They were old and alone at the end. I stared at the message for a long moment, then replied simply, they made my 8-year-old son wait 3 hours for grandparents who never came because they were at a party 3 blocks away. Then they told him he was too old to be upset about broken promises. No, I don't feel guilty. I feel protective. There's a difference. I blocked the cousin and deleted the message. Some people would never understand that protecting your child from toxic family wasn't cruelty. It was love in its purest form. My parents had confused obligation with relationship, had confused DNA with devotion. They'd paid the ultimate price, dying without the family they'd taken for granted, buried by the consequences of their own choices. Oliver never asked about them again. He didn't need to. He'd learned everything he needed to know, that he was valuable, that he deserved people who showed up for him, that his worth wasn't determined by people who'd failed to see it. My parents had wanted to teach him to accept less. Instead, they taught him to demand more. That was their legacy. Not love, not family, but the lesson that some people aren't worth your time, even if they share your last name. And in that lesson, accidentally and ironically, they'd given him the greatest gift, the freedom to walk away from anyone who didn't treasure him. They'd wanted him to learn his place in their hierarchy. Instead, he'd learned he didn't need their hierarchy at all. He'd built his own, and in it, he stood at the top, valued, celebrated, and free. That was justice. That was victory. That was exactly what they'd earned by choosing a 3-block drive to a better party over the grandson who'd waited with melting cake and breaking heart. They'd taught him he didn't matter. He'd learned the lesson perfectly and applied it right back to them. The teachers had become the students, and the final grade was irreversible, permanent, and completely deserved.